All right, Adam, you got a hand for us here?
I do. It's a 2-5 hand from Rivers in Schenectady.
2-5, Rivers, Schenectady. And that is where, well, outside of Albany, as I
Yes, that's
had
correct.
asked in my trailer video. If you go on the YouTube, if you come on to Crush Live Poker, there's a hand, and I say, is Sean Deeb ever kicking around Rivers, Schenectady? I assume he still lives over there, but
Yeah, he lives in the area, and I know he has a private game, but
oh, he has a private game. Very, very interesting. Okay, so 2-5. What's the setup here like for buy-in structure?
yeah, it's a 1K cap.
Okay, 1K cap. Is that the biggest game that runs, I assume, too?
No, they have a 5-10 uncapped on Wednesdays that
Really?
runs. Yeah,
Oh, interesting. Okay. So, yeah, let's get into it here.
sure. So it's eight-handed. We're about 1,000 effective. I cover the villain, but he
Okay.
he bought in full.
Okay.
Uh, so he opens to 15 in middle position.
So MP to 15. Okay.
I'm in the cutoff with Ace of Hearts, Jack of Clubs,
Ace of
uh,
Hearts,
and
Jack of Clubs. Okay.
and I make it 45.
So, 3-bet to 45. And this one can probably, it's pretty close. I mean, I think, again, just pre-flop theory, you can do more calling the closer you are to the button. It is not a three blind game with a straddle, so you can do more calling. Looks like it's a 3x open, so you are like in actuality, in reality, like actually 200 big blind steep. Where some people who play like a somewhat of a rote strategy, what I would disagree with would be, oh, this has to be a three better fold. I just don't think that's the case. Three betting could definitely be more profitable play, but I might call sometimes. It's certainly not a three better fold though, in my humble opinion. So you three bet here at a 45 from the cutoff, okay?
Yeah, and I mean, you can. I agree with you. You can call the this game is not particularly squeeze happy. It's a little bit on the nittier side, which is why I tend to play a bit more on the aggressive side. And when it's marginal, I tend to three bet more.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
and then also this opponent, no one will four bet me light, or anyone light for that matter in the game. So if I do get four bet, it's a trivial laydown.
I mean, I would just say like if it's not that squeeze happy of a game, it would lend me towards doing more calling just because you're not going to get squeezed. Whereas sometimes you get guys behind you where you almost have to three bet to come into the hand because
Right.
you go calling is just going to invite a squeeze. So all right, so
Yeah.
you go to 45.
Yeah, and this opponent is pretty laggy pre-flop as well, so his opening range is probably a bit wider than
Okay,
most. Um, Surprisingly, both blinds cold call the
both
45,
blinds call,
which
cold
is
call. Wow,
the
okay.
cold call. Yeah,
And the
yeah,
original razor.
he calls.
All right. So four ways in a three bet pot, right? So it's like
Yep,
180 or so.
yep. That's what I have is 180.
Okay.
So the flop is Jack of Diamonds, Nine of Clubs, Five of Spades.
Jack of diamonds, Jack of diamonds, nine of clubs, five of spades. So you flop top pair, top kicker in this kind of
Correct.
weird three bet pot.
Correct.
Okay.
So the blinds check, and then the villain donks into me for 65.
The original razor, the original guy that opens, donks for 65.
Right.
The video that we put up on August 7th here today was with my editor Brad donk betting. He donked into a guy in a three bet pot. Just kind of reminds me of that. That was a video that went up a couple hours ago. This is kind of strange because obviously, you would think a laggy guy would four bet with queens, kings, aces when people, cold call. You have a jack with the best kicker. You block pocket jacks, and then I just don't see people like donking like pocket nines, pocket fives all that much, which kind of makes me think like, and the board is somewhat connected. I mean, there isn't a flush draw out there all that much, and it is a three bet pot, which means that the ranges should be more condensed. You kind of stick your neck out here. If it was a single raise pot where you like you somehow like had like the pre-flop lead, like you raised over the top of a limp, and then the blinds called and this guy called, and then the guy who limp donked into you. You kind of stick your neck out a little bit sometimes by like raising flop. because you can open yourself up to a lot of, check raising and things like that. But in a 3-bet pot now, where the ranges should be much more condensed, you really aren't going to be. You shouldn't be seeing like Jack 9 suited. You really shouldn't be seeing hands like 5-5. You very well might. So when you take a look at hands that should be played, you'd really only be concerned here with somebody having 9-9 in the blinds, which is possible. And then once in a while, if this guy was like donking 9-9, he's betting 65 into 180. So, but you were kind of protected that it's a 3-bet pot. So I probably would do a lot of calling. I wouldn't necessarily hate raising to try to get value from like an inferior jack. And if you don't think an inferior jack is, folding, you could easily raise here. And you're just not going to get like check raise 3-bet really almost ever from somebody in the blind. So I could kind of see it going both ways. Maybe sometimes it really depends on like the, like how much I respect the guy who's donking at me.
Yeah. And, to your point, he would definitely 4-bet aces and kings pre-flop. So I highly discounted those, especially with the blinds cold calling. So the blinds cold calling, I think that really makes him play his hand pre-flop more straightforwardly.
So did you considered raising or what here?
I definitely did consider raising because I don't think he would 4-bet queens in that configuration. So I call, and also
you think he could have queens, but the only thing about that is like it's kind. I mean, if he doesn't 4-bet queens, it kind of the types of players that sort of fall into that category. It's like, okay, he doesn't think queens are strong enough to 4-bet. Does that mean he's donking a jack high board? I mean, it's possible. Maybe he was just looking for any board that didn't contain an ace or a king in it or something like that.
Right. And I mean, he could definitely, be doing that. And also I saw his donk into me with the two other blinds who are naturally just probably going to check their range there is very strong as well. Cause he knows my 3-betting range is wide, but it's not crazy. So, he would take that, relatively seriously. So all that kind of taken into account, I called with the intent of, evaluating, future streets.
Okay, so hero calls, and then what do the people in the blinds do?
Everybody calls.
Small blind and big blind call. How many jacks are in the deck here?
Yeah, I was very confused, yes.
Well, I mean, and again, this is where it gets like, people in live chat are chiming in saying like, oh, I like to raise to like clean up the outs, and I keep saying like this should be a more condensed range with the cold calls. I mean, you'll see some like queen 10 suiteds, maybe some king 10 suiteds cold call. 7-8 is also double gutted here to a 6 and a 10. Questionable whether somebody, again, none of those hands really should be cold called to a 3-bet with this original guy opening, but sometimes they're in there. It's just, that's why I almost like raising in a single, sometimes raising in a single raise pot to clean up some of those outs, especially against non-aggressive people from up front that are going to check raise 3-bet you like with draws. Sometimes might be a little bit more of a fit, although they might have more hands though, like Jack 9 suited and things like that. But so, I mean, you could, obviously there could be another jack in here. I mean, not everyone can't have a jack though, right? Because you have a jack, there's a jack on board if the other guy had a jack. So you might see some straight draws in here too, right? So 65 by 4 is 260. So it looks like it's 440 now.
Yep.
Okay.
Then the turn is the 7 of hearts, which is not a bad card.
Well, I mean, it brings in 10-8,
right?
But is somebody playing 10-8? And this is where like it would be I think, a much worse card in a single raise pot.
Sure.
Okay, so 7 of hearts comes out to total rainbow board. It's Jack of diamonds, 9 of clubs, 5 of spades. And now it's 7 of hearts, okay?
Yep, so the blinds check again. Okay. And then the pre-flop raiser bets again to 130. So it's another
130 into 440, so just under a third of the size of the pot. I mean, the problem now is that you kind of you feel like you want to like clean up some of these outs, but you just open yourself up, and you kind of have to sort of slow down here and play a little more defensively, because you got to kind of see what's going on here with the guys in the blinds and what ends up happening. I mean, it's a very, very small bet, but I just think at this point it gets really treacherous if you're going to put in a raise on turn here and quite possibly commit yourself with these other guys in the hand.
Right, and so I called as well because again the blinds could show up here with I don't want to say anything, but their ranges could certainly be wide.
So hero
Uh,
calls. Okay.
yep, the small blind folds, but the big blind calls.
All right. So small blind folds, big blind calls. So you guys go 390 here on the turn, and now we're at 830, and yeah, you got like 750 left in here. So I like a pot size bet left, right?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
that.
Okay. All right. Let's go to the river here.
River is a three of spades.
All right. So that's like just a total brick here for what's going
Yeah,
on here, right? I mean, there's no like front door flush draw that there was not a backdoor flush draw that kind of would make somebody stick in or a front door flush draw. I mean, this is a brick with the way
yeah.
that this went down. So it's Jack 9 5 7 3. Jack 9 5 rainbow, 7 completes the rainbow. River's a 3. Pot is $830. Okay.
And everyone checks to me now.
Interesting. Check to the hero. And the question now is, do we want to, what maybe on the surface looks super, super thin, like do we have the best hand the way that this one went down? I'm going to ask you a question here, Adam. Like, why would this be a much cleaner would this be a much cleaner situation for you to bet if you had, say, like kings, aces, queens, and why?
I would say so because the hand that I am kind of concerned about value owning myself would be queens because he would play queens this way, and I have a jack.
All right, how about
Um,
kings?
if I had kings, I would definitely be value betting.
I mean, what you say has some relevance, but I was actually more thinking of I would rather just not have a jack here and have more, give them more of an opportunity to have a jack. So I think any overpair becomes a much more of a bet here than ace jack. I mean, if you truly think the MP could show up here with queens some of the time, it's much, much closer. The way that this one went down, though, I would find it, because it's a 3-bet pot, remember, I would find it hard to believe that you don't have the best hand here. Where this would be different is if this was a single raise pot and you look back at the turn action, right? You look back at the turn action and the somehow like the big blind, I don't know, overcalling with like 9-7 or Jack 7 or something like that, and just not really knowing what's going on and not putting money in, like some sort of Jack's up hand or somehow 9-7 on the turn, and he's scared that someone has 10-8. This guy in the middle, right, in the big blind, so he's not putting a whole lot of money in because he doesn't really know what's going on, right? I don't really find that that's going to be way, way less likely though I think in this 3-bet pot. So I mean, people's reactions of, oh, just check it back. My question here is like, what is the caller losing to here from either opponent? Now, okay, maybe slivers of queen, queen, although I still kind of find that hard to believe from MP1. Now, just because you're not losing to much doesn't necessarily mean that it's always a bet, because the way that this one went down, though, too, the other thing you have to take into consideration is like, there aren't a ton of draws out here. It's not like the caller can miss like a front door flush draw and get paid by any jack. The hero, as the preflop 3-better, has called the donk, called the turn multi-way. And then if he bets a blank river, it's pretty hard for a jack to be the best hand. I mean, you'd have to have like, queen 10. By the way, king 10 suited turns a double gut shot too on the turn, by the way, too. Like if you had king 10. So the only bluffs you have here for the most part would be queen 10 and king 10 that I could see logically played this way. Queen 10 being open-ended on the flop, king 10 that turns a double gut shot on the turn. But still, it's 2-5, it's live, and I feel like if I bet 300 here, I'm going to get looked up by a jack. I still want to bet here. I don't know really what you are losing to. People saying 5-5, the small, sure, the once in a while the big blind could be just like slow playing 5. I mean not slow play. I don't know, playing cautiously with 5-5. I kind of like 300 here, 350, something like that. People saying, I don't think you would ever want it. Why would you ever jam here? Jam for what? What are you trying to jam for? To get queen to fold? I mean, I still find that hard to believe. It smells like somebody else has king jack here. It's just kind of interesting. I mean, here's the thing, right? So let's say the turn the guy donked and then you called and then both the blinds folded, right? And now he checked the river. What would you do?
If it's heads up, I'm much more likely to bet.
Okay. So obviously there's consideration here because it's multi-way.
Yeah.
All right.
But
So
I mean, yeah. So what did I do?
yeah.
Well, you're absolutely right. I chickened out. Kind of thinking all the things of, if there's queen tens out there and there's not a lot of jacks, I don't know what I'm going to get looked up by. But I checked. The big blind just mucked instantly.
So the big blind just like missed something?
My guess is they had queen 10 and chucked it.
Queen 10 or king 10, right?
10.
Queen 10 or king 10, right?
King 10, one of the two.
Yeah, yeah.
Just, instantly into the muck.
Okay.
And then the preflop razor showed king jack. And I bet if I bet 300, I probably would have gotten called. If I had shoved or bet larger, my guess is he probably would have folded. But there was definitely value to be had on the river.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I wouldn't want to shove. Just a couple other subtle things here, too. I mean, besides the kicker stuff. Like, if you had king jack or queen jack, you're losing to other hands that might not fold. And then the fact that you have ace jack means that it's more likely that one of these guys has queen 10 or king 10, which is actually kind of, I think, probably good because it's more likely the other guy has a jack. You know what I'm saying? Right. As opposed to like trying to find some other hands that you're losing to at the end.
Yeah.
Thanks for the call, Adam. Appreciate it.